ISIS, of course, has been in the news quite a bit. The Islamic State, also known as ISIL or IS, it's a group of people who have caused some trouble by taking over portions of Iraq, and they've been under attack also in Syria, correct? The U.S. government's bombing people, claiming they're bombing ISIS.
In Syria?
Yeah. And, of course, there have been some videos released where beheadings have been proffered as the possible things going on in those videos. The beheadings have not actually been shown in any of the videos.
And the videos have been, like, sort of by experts said that that there's something going on, that there's fancy, editing. So that's
the videos
suspicious.
have clearly been edited. I don't know
That's
how
pretty
fancy.
clear.
I mean, the videos I wouldn't say are fancy necessarily. I could put a video like that together.
I can't remember the terminology that they used, but that obviously it's been doctored in some manner or another. That if somebody's had their head cut off, it wasn't cut off with the knife that was used, and here there's no blood shown, that kind of thing.
So, Johnny Ray, have you seen any of these beheading videos yet?
No, I haven't. I remember when they came out, I had no intention of watching them. I had watched the Nick Berg video from years and years ago, and it was horrifying because
that ain't edited, that ain't fake.
Michael Savage had played the audio from it on his radio show one night as I was driving along, and I was horrified and terrified, and I thought, well, I as an American, I need to see what threats face America, so I need to watch this. And I watched it, and it was horrible. And then these beheading videos came out, and I didn't really intend to watch them. I assumed that they were going to depict a man getting his head cut off.
That's what I thought. And then one of our callers called to say that wasn't the case. So we did watch it.
Yeah, and the day after I think the first video came out, I was listening to NPR probably, and they did a story about how some experts think that the video may not be real, but all the experts do agree that Sotloff actually was killed, but just not necessarily beheaded as depicted. He was purported to be in this video. And then now the whole thing is totally fishy.
There was another one that came out after that where it was a similar circumstance with a guy in an orange shirt, prisoner of whatever this group is. They claim to be ISIS. Then the same man with a British accent giving statements about, stop messing with us and we'll stop killing people. And then he ostensibly kills the same guy, but they fade to black before the actual blood starts flowing. He appears to be cutting at the man's neck, but you don't actually see any...
He's kind of sawing, but he could very well be a rubber knife for all we know.
You don't see any blood flow. And it only, they cut away. They fade out within a second or two of the cutting beginning. And then they show the body. They show decapitated head sitting on the back of the body. So it appears as though there's a dead body there.
And it appears as though his head's been cut off.
But, there's no actual video of the decapitation itself, the act of it. Then there was another video, which I haven't seen, but I did read a description of, from a different ISIS group. This one is a French or an Algerian group that killed a Frenchman that they had. And it described the similar video where, again, it fades, and then they show the decapitated corpse. But the more recent ISIS videos have not involved beheadings. They've involved a British hostage named John Cantlie. Now, it's spelled Cant, C-A-N-T-L-I-E, which sounds like can't lie, interestingly enough. Interesting man's name to choose for reading propaganda written by ISIS, because that's essentially what has gone on in the 3 videos thus far that have been released with this man sitting against a black background in his orange prisoner shirt, and looking directly into the video camera and reading a prepared statement.
Okay.
The first video, which really isn't worth sharing, is basically him announcing himself, talking about why he's doing this, and saying he's been abandoned by his country, and that he will be presenting a series of videos to give their side of the story. Now, there's 3 sides to every story, right? There's one side, the other side, and then there's the truth. So, how much of this is true? I don't know. But it's interesting to hear their perspective on what's going on in the world. Because we're presented with the perspective of the U.S. federal government, most commonly through the mainstream mouthpiece media, which basically will say and do whatever it is the government wants them to.
Certainly seems that way sometimes.
So it's interesting to get the other side of the story here. And it's also, I have to say, difficult as hell to find these videos. Not as difficult as hell, but pretty difficult, because the news media writes plenty of reports about these things. If you go and you type into Google John Cantley, and then you look at the news results, you'll find countless stories about this guy appearing in videos, but almost none of the news reports will link you to the actual video. You have to trust their summary of what it is that they say that he said. So it's been somewhat frustrating to actually find the actual videos. It would be nice if ISIS just had themselves a YouTube channel or some sort of official propaganda mouthpiece location where everyone could just go to find their latest bit of propaganda. But instead, you would got to find somebody who's downloaded it and re-uploaded it to some place that hasn't taken it offline, like YouTube seems to be targeting these things and taking them down. So it's been a frustrating challenge to actually find them, but I've got them. I've got the second and third videos here, and we'll assess them here in a moment. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. The ISIS propaganda coming up on Free Talk Live. John Cantley was abducted apparently in November of 2012. He claims in his video series that is being produced by ISIS, allegedly, that he has been abandoned by the UK government. And in the first of what is now 3 videos, the first video I'm not going to play for you. It's just basically him introducing himself and saying, hey, we're going to come out with more videos. Look forward to them. This series, sort of basically, it's a lecture series from ISIS.
Do any of these things, like, are they meaningful to you when you hear them? Because the only thing that's meaningful to me that I get out of these videos is, look, this is our business, not your business. You keep on coming here. We're going to do what we can to drive you away. And I don't think that's particularly motivating to most Westerners. I think that it sort of sets them off as opposed to, scares them away. So,
have you watched either of these videos?
The ones you're talking about now?
Yeah.
Not the John Cantley videos. I'm talking about the beheading videos, which have a bit of a lecture that go on ahead of time. So I feel like I know the flavor that we're talking about here. I haven't seen the Cantley videos, but I have been lectured to by ISIS up to this point. And, if I had my druthers, ISIS would be killing just the people that are locally, and they should have to fight their own battles as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
There are terrible things happening, but I don't believe that a people can achieve – like, you can't achieve freedom for somebody else. You can't free other people. They must free themselves. And whatever struggle that takes to break the bonds of, these ideas, because that's all governments and religions are, these ideas that bind us, to get us better ideas, new ideas that fit the new paradigm in a new century. They're going to have to do that on their own. That happened over here in the United States in 1776 through 1779 or whatever it was.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent, right? Like, to some extent. Now, it's interesting. You look at Canada, no bloodshed there. How much more free is the United States than Canada? Well, I can tell you on the economic freedom charts, the United States is less free. So maybe the argument is, fighting your own revolution and setting up your own government is going to make you less free.
So back to the story here from ISIS. This is coming from thedailymail.co.uk. They have, credit to the Daily Mail. They're the best that I've seen at reporting on this, because they'll actually give you, in one of the articles, they give you the full video. In the most recent one, because there was one that just came out yesterday of these videos by ISIS, these propaganda videos, they don't give you the full video in that one, but they do give you the full text of the video. And I have found both of those videos. I'm going to play this audio here for you, and then we'll break it down as we go through it, because to some extent it's a bit of like a rambling screed. So
again,
yeah. But Mark, this is different though from the beheading videos. This is just pure propaganda. This is, just a guy speaking into a camera.
But do you believe what he says? Do you think that this is coming from him? Do you think it's coming from people that will kill him? Well, that's the kind of the thing here. It's just like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm being. Who's lecturing me?
Who knows? This may not even be. Who even knows what ISIS is? I mean, who knows if it's just some CIA front group? I don't know.
I think that ISIS is real, and they're wreaking havoc in Iraq and Syria, but these people making the videos are somebody else entirely.
I don't know who's behind these videos, but I know they're hard as hell to find, and so I think they're worth presenting because they're rare. You probably have not heard this. So here it is. This is video number 2. This is actually the first actual straight up, this is our propaganda kind of video from John Cantley and ISIS.
Hello there. I'm John Cantley, the British citizen abandoned by my government and a long-term prisoner of the Islamic State. In this program, we'll see how the Western governments are hastily marching towards all-out war in Iraq and Syria without paying any heed to the lessons of the recent past, and how they're using the persuasive approach to lure the public back into the conflict. So let's get straight to the point with a quote from former CIA chief turned vigorous anti-intervention campaigner Michael Schur.
Now, before we go on with this, and by the way, the news articles that I saw about this point out that Michael Schur apparently was a Ron Paul supporter, as though that somehow means that ISIS supports Ron Paul or Ron Paul supports ISIS.
Well, it's funny because that's kind of the paint that you'll get from the chicken hawks here in the United States. Well, Ron, who do you think, which candidate do you think ISIS supports, or Al Qaeda or whatever? Well, the obvious answer is Ron Paul, because Ron Paul doesn't want to fight these people. Yes, it is true. The reason that these people are killing Americans is because of the U.S. involvement in the Middle East. We've been saying it for a decade now.
Yes.
It hasn't changed. Yes, people that want to kill people in the Middle East probably support Ron Paul because they want the United States out. Yes, we're clear on that. But what business is it of the United States to be in the Middle East? To support kings and tyrants? Because that's not the United States as I understand it. The United States as I understand it fought a long and bloody war against a king. And the idea that country's government, the republic for which it stands, is now fighting a war for kings disgusts me.
So it's an interesting thing happening in this video, and that is that it's blurred out at certain points. Now, when it's John Cantley talking to the camera, it's crisp, it's clear, it's HD. And then whenever the video displays some sort of image to illustrate the text or to illustrate what's going on, because John's reading a script, so to illustrate the text of the script, it's blurred out. And I suspect the reason for that is because they're using copyrighted images from, mainstream media, and that's why these videos are being pulled from YouTube, because ISIS just used whatever images they wanted to.
Really? That's the reason we can't find this news, is because, oh my God, they've used other news agencies' clips?
That's what I suspect, because I can't understand why the hell else they would blur these images out. This is just an image of a guy sitting, so you can see just a blurry image of a man sitting somewhere. This is Michael Schur here. So we're going to continue with this here, just barely getting into the ISIS propaganda videos, which you probably aren't going to be hearing anywhere else because it's hard as hell to find the actual videos. There's plenty of summaries of these videos in the mainstream media, but it's very difficult to actually find the videos themselves. Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREEZE. We'll see what ISIS allegedly has to say for themselves here in moments. It's Free Talk Live, and you can share your thoughts as well. We're normally pretty good at tearing up the propaganda of the U.S. federal government here on Free Talk Live. We're now going to be sharing with you and commenting on the ISIS propaganda, which you normally don't get access to because the news media just doesn't seem to be interested in sharing this with you. There's all kinds of stories out there written about the ISIS propaganda videos, whether they be the beheading videos that happened in late August and September, or they are these newer videos, which are not beheading videos, but just videos of a man, John Cantley, one of their prisoners, wearing his orange prison shirt, sitting at a desk, and speaking to you in front of a black background. Very simple, very basic.
Where do they get these orange prison shirts?
I don't know.
Probably left over from U.S. occupation.
Yeah, I'm probably right about that. So he's basically just looking into the camera, reading a script from a teleprompter, and addressing the audience with the ISIS side, or what is ostensibly the ISIS side of the story. Clearly, we don't really know where these videos are coming from, but they're hard to find on the internet, and so I think that is one reason why they're worth sharing, because it seems like the mainstream media doesn't really want you to see them. So we're going to continue with those. Plus, Johnny Ray's Game of the Week still to come here tonight. And we'll be, pausing throughout the video to comment, because listening to all 5.5 minutes straight through would probably be kind of annoying. It does tend to be a bit of a rambling, propaganda screed. So let's continue here with Michael. They're about to quote Michael Schur, who apparently is a former CIA officer.
We've quoted him here on the show.
Yeah, the name sounded familiar to me. Anyway, this is again British hostage John Cantley, and credit goes to the Daily Mail for actually embedding this video on their website. So again, good for them, because almost no one else did it.
President Obama does not have the slightest intention of defeating the Islamic State, he says, which would require the aerial slaughter and boots-on-the-ground demolishing of the Mujahideen. Michael Schur, whose knowledge of the Muslim nations and the complexities of their society is considerable, adds, 18 years into our war with the Islamists, the US government has given no public sign that it has the slightest awareness of what its enemies are fighting for. Now, there are two solid points here. The Obama administration is so perplexed as they march back into Iraq, but they're tap dancing around the issue in a we're getting involved, but we're not really getting involved kind of way. Airstrikes only, no troops on the ground, limited operation time, no mission creep. All those pre-combat agreements that tend to get forgotten.
No mission creep. They've gone from Iraq to Syria.
Well, no, you didn't hear what he just said, because you spoke over him. Hang on, let me see if I can jump it back here. As he's saying, he's going over this list of things that they are saying, that the U.S. government is saying.
Okay.
Oh, we're just going to do bombings, no troops on the ground, no mission creep.
No mission creep. All those pre-combat agreements that tend to get forgotten after the first 6 months of nasty, tough stuff.
Right. So, okay. Right. So, mission accomplished, right? Oh, yeah. No, they're going to continue. There's going to be more. And before you know it, maybe there will be troops on the ground. And what didn't Barack Obama promise that he was not going to invade Syria during the more recent election?
Yes, but at this point, boots aren't really on the ground in a major way, so that's probably what he's trying to say. Obviously, they're going to kill people.
So bombing's not an invasion?
That's the idea.
I bet it would feel pretty invasive if your house got bombed. So, I think they're absolutely right on this point, that they're saying one thing in the front of this, and then what actually comes out on the end is going to be something else entirely.
Well, I don't really care how many ISIS people get killed in these bombings. It's everybody else. You can't drop Hellfire missiles from remote control airplanes and only kill guilty people. That's really the difficult part for me in this, is that you're running these air campaigns and innocent people are dying, and you're just saying it's the costs of war. Whoa, no, it's not. It's not the cost of war. You don't get to decide who dies and who doesn't without having the blood on your hands. You kill an innocent person, you're a murderer.
Right.
You support the killing of innocent people, and you're some kind of bloodthirsty warmonger.
People in America would not stand for it if the U.S. government's response to so-called domestic terrorists was to bomb an entire neighborhood or an entire apartment building or whatever. That wouldn't be acceptable, because it'd be pretty clear that we got the terrorist and 100 other people. That wouldn't be okay, would it? So we continue here more with John Cantley.
Pre-9/11 Afghans are already back in control of large areas of Afghanistan, while the full might of the American war machine couldn't destroy the Islamic State in Iraq before. So now the state is far stronger than ever it was. What is...
See, I think that's a foolish thing to do, to goad, the U.S. Look, you're just not strong enough. Well, yeah, the United States could absolutely wipe out the threat of the Islamic State. All they have to do is turn a whole bunch of ICBMs on the Middle East and blow it up and turn it into glass. Yes, the United States can wipe out the Islamic threat by wiping out every Muslim. Well,
can't do that.
The 0.1% of the population that's dangerous would cost the lives of the 99.9%.
To wipe out every Muslim, they'd have to bomb the entire world.
No, they'd have. I'm just saying, if you want to wipe out the Islamic State, it can be done. That's what I'm saying. The United States possesses the military strength to kill every man, woman, and child on the planet. Like they can do the judge death thing.
And they've eliminated all life on the planet.
They can do it. Let's not pretend like they can't.
Scott Horton at antiwar.com says that ISIS is really desperate to be seen as the enemy of the U.S. because without that position and without this place in the spotlight, their neighbors and the people right there in the Middle East with them would not tolerate their existence. But as long as they can be seen as the enemies of the U.S., then that guarantees a little support for them, and that they really want the U.S. to be at war with them.
Let's go to Pete. He's in California. You're on Free Talk Live. Hey, Pete.
And I think the last comment you made about nuking the Middle East, that I think if you really want to do it, all you have to do is aim an ICBM at Mecca and Medina, and then one day, and then they're going to hear. That doesn't mean that that's right.
That was really juvenile.
I mean,
were you doing an imitation of what you think people sound like when they're?
I could really care less about the sound of the prayer. I'm much more concerned with the sound of the explosion. Do you think it's a good solution?
Well, no, I don't. I think that I think the government's really hypocritical, and I think I was watching this thing on prophecy the other night, and one of the things the guy that had the visions and whatnot said, he said that one of the things is all the countries that the United States has invaded illegally without the Lord's permission, those countries, the Lord's going to use them in justice and bring it back to attack us and destroy us, and that's justice. What goes around comes around.
But
so then you would agree that the U.S. government should get out of the Middle East, leave the rest of the world alone?
I agree with Ron Paul on that. I believe that we need some diplomacy, but we stick our nose too far in too many things. We need to have it in a few things, but 95% of the things we have it in, we need to get out.
Pete, let me ask you this. Would a fair and just God allow the vengeance of the foreign invader to fall upon people who didn't support the U.S.'s intervention? Because this is really kind of what concerns me here is this collectivizing. I don't see a fair and just God as seeing national borders. He doesn't say that Mark Edge is an American, so therefore I'm going to visit the terrors of war upon him. However, it's always the poor people that bear the brunt, and the rich old men walk away.
But what the thing is, what in the Bible, Israel is an example. They suffered corporately for their idolatry and doing bad things. If generations after generations in this country have not checked the corrupt people that are in power and have said no, I don't care, and been apathetic and watched sports on your TV, then the same judgment's going to hit everybody. Now, I believe that the Christians, the people, the Lord's children, the ones who He chose to save, they're going to be protected and they're going to have certain things. But He's going to let a lot of us are going to get our heads cut off. A lot of us are going to be martyrs. And, I'll tell you what's coming.
From Islam? You think they're going to invade the United States?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
In the end times, it says in
the end
Revelation that a lot of people are going to get their head cut off. And we're there. I mean, can't you see the writing on the wall? I mean,
all I can remember is Paul saying that the end times would come soon. And to me that
it's here.
Well, yeah, but it's been 2,000 years. That's not anybody's definition of soon.
Thanks, Paul, or Pete, rather, for the call. Toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. We'll get more propaganda here.
I feel like I've been lied to by, the myth maker, Paul, Saul of Tarsus.
All right, we're going to come back with more of the John Cantley video here. This is video number 2 of the series allegedly from ISIS, giving their side of the story. And in the last hour, we had begun sharing the propaganda video, the very first one from John Cantley, where he is, it's not from John Cantley, but he's the only one who can be identified in the video. He's the prisoner, ostensibly, of ISIS, sitting at a table, wearing his orange prison shirt, and speaking into a camera against a black background. Sounds like a kind of an echoey room that he's sitting in.
Now, who was he before he was the front man for an ISIS propaganda piece?
Oh boy, you know what?
Because he sounds like a BBC presenter.
He is a British hostage, so that much I know about him. The article that I have from the Daily Mail doesn't go into Cantley's history.
Okay.
But if you want to look him up, feel free to do that. John Cantlie, Cantlie. He had some involvement with the UK government, I believe. So we go on here. We'll continue the video in moments, but first we've got Daniel on the line in Utah. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Daniel.
Yes. How much difference do you think there is between the killings like ISIS, their beheadings, or killing people slowly through corrupt economics?
Well, I think you give people have a chance to sort of move someplace else. They have maybe a chance to turn things around. So I would say that chopping somebody's head off is worse than manipulating the financial markets. But when you look at a financial market manipulation is done on, really, you can just say the whole planet, 7 billion people, whereas you can only chop so many heads off in a day.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think, Daniel?
That's a good discussion. Well, it's like, because the beheading is so, fierce, everyone's going to dislike that. But if the whole world is supporting a system where everyone's abusing their neighbor and it's destroying their lives and it's keeping them trapped in a system that's destructive, and in some ways that's more a lot greater evil than just a few beheadings.
I think there's an argument to be made there. I mean, there's no doubt that the bankers and the government goons of the world are committing much greater atrocities against humanity on the whole. And that doesn't, I'm not even including all of the wars they start, and which results, of course, in more unnecessary death. But yeah, just the economics that you're talking about.
A lot of it, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's they're keeping poor people poor.
Yeah. But the people are guilty of supporting it, taking the bribe, and abuse each other by giving allegiance to that corruption instead of creating a credit system based on upholding rights.
Well, the people are guilty of ignorance, really, more so than anything else. Ignorance and apathy.
Right. Correct.
Many people don't even really know much about, the money system that they're even involved in.
Right.
Hey, thanks for the call tonight, Daniel. I appreciate hearing from you. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. So, again, we're going to continue this first ISIS propaganda video because it's...
John Cantlie is a British war photographer and correspondent.
There you go. Not anymore. Now he's the ISIS correspondent, and he's going to continue the propaganda.
Ill-advised foray really supposed to achieve. And Schuer's second point is aptly made. As ever, the entire reason as to why we're at war with the Islamists and what they're fighting for is brilliantly avoided by all. Senior US politicians seem content to call the Islamic State nasty names: awful, vile, a cancer, an insult to our values. But such petty insults don't really do much harm to the most powerful jihadist movement seen in recent history.
However, what they do is sort of a common thing where you have a war, right? You want to talk bad about the other side, the Japs, the gooks, etc. So dehumanize them as much as possible. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I think the Islamic State is a group of good guys who's just, under fire by the U.S. and UK governments and other governments of the world. They call themselves a state. They're a group of killers, just like the United States government is a group of killers. They just don't have the same influence. They don't have the same level of funding that the United States government does. So I don't want it to sound like, I'm taking sides on this. I'm against all states.
Yeah, I just believe a state is the most successful gang in a given geographic area. The Islamic State proposes to be that most successful gang.
That the Western governments were caught napping by the sheer speed of the Islamic State's growth is now a given. Intelligence officials failed to anticipate the emergence of the Islamic State, says Tom Keene, a former New Jersey governor. We certainly didn't anticipate them going across the border into Iraq and declaring themselves a caliphate.
Now, that all seems to be accurate. Like this whole Islamic State thing seemed to come out of nowhere, right?
It did, quick.
Yeah, so that much is true.
Obama and his allies were well and truly caught by surprise. The president once called George Bush's Iraq conflict a dumb war and couldn't wait to distance America from it when he came into power. Now he's being inexorably drawn back in, but he's at pains to point out This is not the equivalent of the Iraq War. Indeed, it's far more complicated and prone to failure. There is a newly elected pro-American Iranian regime in Iraq. They wait eagerly for further American intervention to strengthen the Iranian crescent in the Middle East. But the appointment of a new puppet is an important piece of the puzzle in America's Gulf War III, as it allows them to get involved quickly via a proxy. Iraq's leaders should know that the United States will stand shoulder to shoulder with Iraqis as they implement their national plan, gushed John Kerry on the 9th of September, meaning our national plan to tackle the Islamic State. Everyone now.
You're shaking your head, Mark.
I don't disagree with what's being proffered here. You really got to ask yourself, what is there for the United States in Iraq, Syria, these places? You consider what there's been the $1.5 million for each Tomahawk missile, and 250 of them been fired at this point.
Yeah.
That's a lot of your tax money that could have gone to a lot of stuff.
It's an unending flow of money into the military-industrial complex.
That's what it is. It seems to be what it's all about.
And
there's nothing to gain.
And the unending extinguishing of innocent lives.
No end game at all.
We'll come back with more of it in moments. Free Talk Live. So here we continue. We've got the ISIS video, and one of the ISIS, there's two propaganda videos they've released so far. This is the first of two with British hostage John Cantley as the host. We continue with some of the audio here.
Is getting involved. Denmark and France have sent air power. Britain is arming the Kurds. Iran is sending troops. Contractors are being sought in Iraq, and even Bashar al-Assad, until earlier this year, the most hated and villainized tyrant in the Arab world, is being approached for permission to enter Syria. Can the Islamic State be defeated without addressing that part of their organization that resides in Syria? Asked General Martin Dempsey. The answer is no.
No.
It's all quite a circus.
This video is about a week old.
Airstrikes, the creation of last-minute puppet governments, advisory teams on the ground, wooing previous enemies to join in, and trans-border incursions into a country that's been in a state of civil war for 3 years, all the while completely underestimating the strength and fighting zeal of the opponent. Not since Vietnam have we witnessed such a potential mess in the making.
You think he's exaggerating?
No. I mean, look at this. Vietnam pales in comparison to this quagmire that the Middle East has been since 9/11. This is the longest war in U.S. history, and it's all sort of the same thing. People want to separate it, but it's all together. It's all this we're searching for Al-Qaeda thing.
Now, obviously, if they don't have boots on the ground in this particular instance at the moment, there probably won't be as many fatalities. But what was pointed out previously about the Iraq-Afghanistan invasions was that there would have been more fatalities, but medical technology has improved since Vietnam. So if you just compare raw fatalities of American troops, it doesn't seem to be as bad. But on the other hand, more people survive Iraq and Afghanistan because med tech is more improved.
They'll have they'll be amputees for the rest of their lives.
We'll come back with more on Free Talk Live. You take control. This is the first video of two thus far, and apparently there's going to be a series of these. We don't know how many of them, and I don't know if the last one's going to end in John Cantley being beheaded, but John Cantley is the host of these. He is a former photojournalist from the UK who has been ostensibly in the clutches of ISIS for the last 2 years, and they are now using him as their spokesperson. He's reading a script from a teleprompter on a black background, wearing his orange prison garb, in a relatively echoey room as we continue with the remaining 38 seconds of this first video.
Current estimates of 15,000 troops needed to fight the Islamic State are laughably low. The state has more mujahideen than this, and this is not some undisciplined outfit with a few Kalashnikovs. We started with Michael Schur, so let's give him the final word for now. Think what you will of the Islamists and their brand of war-making, he says. But they have been in the field fighting since 1979, and their movement has never been larger, more popular, or as well armed as it is today. Join me again for the next program.
And we do have that next program, but we're going to hold off on sharing that with you tonight. It's, again, another 5. The next one's about another 5 minutes. That was a 5-minute video, 5.5 minutes. The next one is about the same length, and it was just released yesterday. And, again, it's fairly difficult to find these videos. I did link on our Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. You can access all of those through news.freetalklive.com. If you're on, one of those things you prefer to follow us there, please do. I did link to this video from the Daily Mail, which was the only news source that actually bothered to link to this video. Everybody else just talks about the video, makes assertions about what's in the video, but never actually links to it. It's like they don't want you to see it. It's very strange.
Yeah, it was very difficult to get the original videos too, but this was even harder.
Yeah, this was I would say a little bit more difficult because it's not that hard to find.
It's getting harder and harder to find these.
It's not that hard to find beheading videos because there's always gore sites that are dedicated to putting up beheading videos. So, go to ogrish.tv and you'll probably find some beheading video. But this is just a propaganda video, just a man reading a statement into a camera.
And they won't put it on things like YouTube because it has bits of news items in it or something, like copyrighted news items.
That's what I suspect. That's what I suspect. So anyway, that's the first of 2 videos so far. There will be more. They're going to also apparently in future videos be talking about what ISIS is and what their plans are, what they want, their whatever their philosophical basis is, if they have something like that. So
we had some picture we shared on the Facebook page of some ISIS, what apparently were ISIS people sort of bowing for prayers in 2 different directions, which makes no sense for somebody that considers themselves to be the Islamic State. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't claim to know who ISIS is or who's even making these videos. If it is, in fact, ISIS, we really don't know. And I'm not going to go out there on a limb and say I know what the truth is. All I want to do is present this side. I want to, we know what the American side, the U.S. government side, I guess to be more specific, we know what the U.S. government side of things are, but what are the ISIS, or the people claiming to be ISIS, allegedly saying? That's why I thought it was important to share this, and I think it's worthwhile doing that.
Well, I think that the things that they point out is that this is going to be yet another long and costly intervention that isn't going to turn out the way that we're told it's going to turn out, that's going to have repercussions that go on for potentially decades, is absolutely true. And I'm just not interested.
The official statements from the U.S. government regarding the war against ISIS always say that it's going to be a matter of years and it's going to be a long, drawn-out struggle. They're setting people up to accept a never-ending war.
That's what they were doing with the war on terror.
It's been a never-ending war. When has the United States not been at war? It certainly hasn't.
In my lifetime, it hasn't been the case.
I don't think that there's a situation where it's been at all in anyone's lifetime.
They've been setting
We are at war with the moderate insurgents in Syria. We have always been at war with the moderate insurgents in Syria.
Well, I'm personally not at war with anyone, but Johnny Ray, they've been doing this for years. I mean, the war on terror has always been this open-ended excuse for everlasting conflict, because there's always some new terrorist. There's always some new boogeyman that they can point to. And, of course, to have a war on terror is just as pointless as a war on drugs, because you can't have a war on drugs. The drugs will always be there. And as long as you keep destroying lives around the world, there will always be terror to respond to. So it never ends.
You can't use an organization that rules through terror to prevent terrorism.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.